Today I want to look at things from a different perspective. And yes, we do start with my dear friend Eric D. from T.
138. Another favorite proof of ball earthers is the appearance from an observer on shore of ships' hulls being obfuscated by the water and disappearing from view when sailing away towards the horizon. Their claim is that ships' hulls disappear before their mastheads because the ship is beginning its declination around the convex curvature of the ball earth. Once again, however, their hasty conclusion is drawn from a faulty premise, namely that only on a ball earth could this phenomenon occur. The fact of the matter is that the law of perspective on plane surfaces dictates and necessitates the exact same occurrence. For example, a girl wearing a dress walking away towards the horizon will appear to sink into the earth the farther away she walks. Her feet will disappear from view first, and the distance between the ground and the bottom of her dress will gradually diminish until, after a half a mile, it seems like her dress is touching the ground as she walks on invisible legs. Such is the case on plane surfaces. The lowest parts of objects receding from a given point of observation necessarily disappear before the highest.
Let's have a look at that girl. This drawing is supposed to show perspective. And yes, the feet of that girl seem to magically disappear. But wait a moment. Something looks not quite right here. Do you see how the ground is lifted up a little bit towards the right-hand side? This is done on purpose. And this is where the drawing is lying to you. Let's follow the lines in the picture. These lines are supposed to be vanishing lines that meet somewhere at the horizon in a vanishing point, right? Let's highlight these lines a bit. Do you see that the lower lines intentionally meet earlier than the upper line? I think the artist did this on purpose. This is not how perspective works. As a child, I always watched Sesame Street, and one of my favorite parts were the "What Happens Next" games. So let us see what will happen next to the girl. As intended by the artist, she will go hull down first until you only see the head, and then she disappears. This is usually not what we see. Let's have a look at some power poles to see how perspective really works. You can do that yourself if you don't believe me. When we look at the first two poles in the row, of course we see that the one further away is smaller due to perspective. Now we choose some prominent parts and connect the equivalent points. The result are vanishing lines that are meeting in exactly one point, the vanishing point. So far, so good. When we now take away all the ballast from the image and only have those lines, do they remind you of something? Exactly! The Intercept Theorem we learned about in school. We only consider the one that applies to our problem, where two parallel lines intersect a set of vanishing lines. It tells us that the proportions of parts of the parallel lines stay the same, no matter how far away you are from the vanishing point. Now let's get back to our power poles. I marked the number of pixels from the upper edge of the photo for each important point and calculated the distances between those points. When we calculate the proportions, we get the same result for both poles, just like the Intercept Theorem predicted. And this would also have worked for the girl if the artist had been honest. Her feet do not disappear. They just get smaller, just like the rest of her body. I guess that is the reason they chose a girl with a long dress for this fraud. The big dress will still be seen, even if the feet have become very small in the distance. If they had chosen a boy, this optical illusion would not have worked. Eric. I know this was not your own drawing, but a very short look at it should have told you it was a swindle. The fact that you nevertheless used it for your video makes you a con. Or a stupid person, whatever you prefer. The question is, why should Eric do this? Because in his flat earth model, he cannot explain such a simple thing like a sunset. How can half the sun be behind the horizon when it does not really sink but only move away over a flat earth? Shouldn't it vanish towards a point? Yeah, I know what you will say. It's all just CGI. So let's look at a real sunset over the Baltic Sea. This does not look like a flat earth sunset to me, but I could be wrong. So let's see if the sun vanishes towards a point as in the flat earth model. I took 3 frames out of the video and compare the size of the sun. If it moves away, it should get smaller due to perspective. If it stays at the same distance but sinks behind the curvature of Earth, it should have about the same size in all frames. I think we have a clear winner, the globe model. But aren't there videos on YouTube that show the sun becoming larger upon rising up? Yes, actually, and I found one that uses the same method that I just used. Let's watch it for a moment. Yes, this guy is absolutely right. We do see the sun getting bigger. And I will comment on that later on. But for the moment, let me show you a perspective-only vanishing of the sun again, as proposed in the flat earth model. Here is what we should expect. And here is what we see in this video. The sun is getting bigger, but the effect is tiny. Close to the horizon, where the sun should vanish into a point, it still is huge. Perspective cannot explain this. But if it's not perspective, why did the sun grow larger in this video? Mainly because of the corona of the sun. Here is how. If we look at the bright sun, it is not easy to distinguish its body from its corona. But when we use a sun filter, we can. Do you notice that the sun looks smaller without its corona? Clouds also act like a sun filter and block the corona. Air pollution and water vapor near the ground also block more corona light when the sun sets towards the horizon. Often the sunlight gets redder because only the longer wavelengths shine through those denser layers. In some big cities, you almost always see nice red sunsets due to air pollution. Interestingly, those flat earth sunrise videos always stop at the point where the camera would adjust the aperture and block part of the light again, so that the sun would appear smaller again. it would not fit their model. And again, perspective means a vanishing point, and as long as they cannot show the sun becoming tiny near the horizon, they have no proof of their model. The next problem with this video approach are the huge differences in sun growth between the different videos. If it was only perspective, we should get pretty similar results every single day. And there is a geometrical problem as well. The sun can only double its size due to perspective when it halves its distance. In this video here, the sun doubles its size in a few minutes. How fast can the sun travel? I mean, according to Flat Earth model, it must always be at least 3,000 miles away. If I take the biggest sun in this image as 3,000 miles away, the smallest must be at least 6,000 miles away. The sun has traveled 3,000 miles in about 10 minutes in this video. At this rate, it would travel around the Earth once every 80 to 90 minutes. As I said before, the corona strongly affects the sun's apparent size, so I strongly suggest that we all use a sun filter for this kind of video if we want to measure the sun's size without its corona. Flat Earth Samurai has done it. He used a solar filter to see if the sun gets bigger. He says his findings are inconclusive for now, but I guess we can help him. When we compare the size of the higher sun with the lower sun, we find no difference anymore. Interestingly, he still talks about a vanishing point and chemtrails. There have been attempts to explain our familiar daily sun path with a perspective matrix sun path. But there's still this problem of the vanishing point. A point is a point, and the sun should become a very small point before it vanishes. We do not observe this, so I guess we can discard this hypothesis. And now I want to put some flesh onto the bones by asking, how big is the sun? Wikipedia says the sun's diameter is 31 to 32 minutes of arc, which is about 0.5 degree. And they do not say in Africa or from the North Pole. You can measure those 0.5 degree anywhere on the world. Or why should we use an angular diameter at all when the sun gets bigger and smaller due to perspective every minute? So this is the angle I'm talking about, and it is half a degree. If we know the distance to the sun and this angle, we can find out the true size of the sun in miles. We just have to do some simple trigonometry. I don't want to bore you with the math, but if you want, you can stop the video at any point and check it yourself. The result? If the sun is 3,000 miles away, its true diameter is about 26 miles. In the flat Earth model, it would mean that the sun is directly above us. The sun in the flat Earth model circles the equator once per 24 hours, or at a speed of 1,000 miles per hour westwards. After 3 hours, it has moved 3,000 miles to the west. Our distance to the sun has grown, and we can calculate the new distance with Pythagoras. After 3 hours, the sun is over 4,000 miles away, but its angular diameter is still 0.5 degree. Let's plug in the new distance into the formula and we get a new diameter for the Sun of about 37 miles. It must have grown by a factor of 1.4. But wait, for an observer B directly underneath the Sun, it will still be only 26 miles diameter. They cannot both be right, can they? This leads us to the conclusion. If the Sun is for all observers on Earth the same angular size, it must have about the same distance for all observers. And this can only work if the Sun is very far away. The videos where they used a sun filter to block the corona showed that the Sun for most of its daily path keeps the same angular diameter. This is direct proof that the Sun is much further away than the flat Earth model predicts. In turn, a Sun much further away would lighten up the whole of the flat Earth disk at once, and we would not have day and night. And that leads to the conclusion that something must block the sunlight half of the day. How about curvature? Now let's summarize. Sun filter videos show the Sun is very far away. The Earth has curvature. The Earth spins around its axis because a Sun that far away would have to travel at a speed of about 7,000 miles per second to orbit Earth once a day. And that the Sun is huge in comparison to Earth. Because of all that, many flat earthers do not like to use sun filters, and those who do not think about or calculate the consequences of their videos.